Hello world. Patricia O'Connor and Frida Reba Darcy. Well, where is Frida? Let's see if we can find Frida in the shot here. Can you tip down? And Frida Reba Darcy right there. And what do we got here? We have ourselves pinning up. We're locked off on the tripod. We're a little crooked. And we have ourselves a cork bark oak. And tonight, we're going to stay locked off on the sticks, as it were. Panning up a little bit more. And stay locked off on the sticks, and I'm going to do a little bit of end of year cutback. Our tree is finally dormant. More so that we got a dormant. We didn't hardly get even a dormancy last year. We do get one this year, and the tree does seem to be a little dormant. It's slowed down. It's not flushing out as much. This is a good time for me to get caught up with what I'm doing and do a little bit of cutting back now. But unlike the other times when I've cut this tree back in the spring and in the summer, we're not really going to expect it to flush back right away. What will come of this in the way of new growth, we probably won't see until spring. But yeah, this is a good time to do that. So brought it in the house, put it up on the table, and I'm going to do part of this video. Like I said, it's up on the sticks. I'm going to do part of this video up here, all in front of the tree, and then at some point I'll go down there closer to where Frida is after panning the camera down, and then I'll do something that I like to do, which is kind of the way I work the bottom of the tree. So this is a cork bark oak. This tree was one of my first bonsai trees. This was probably a finished tree at one point, but it had suffered some dieback and was in need of restyling. When I found it, that was during COVID, and this tree is a few years old. I'm thinking, if I remember correctly, it was like 38 years old or something, 35 years old. I did a repot about a year ago and saw where it had a chopped flat bottom. The root ball had a limb that was cut flush that was about that big around. I'm not sure if that indicates whether or not maybe it was that was cut from a limb or grafted from a limb, or perhaps that was the original root from where it may have been collected from the ground. That might have been the taproot, but I did see a really large flat chop on the bottom where somebody had done some really good root work. But in their really good root work, they did have to remove something that was pretty good size around. So that's really about all I know. I got this tree at Groveway Bonsai Garden, and it was one of Johnny Cedar's trees, and I learned a lot from this tree so far, and I absolutely love it. Quercus, cork bark oak, Quercus suber. These are Mediterranean trees, like from Spain, like as in Mediterranean, and they like to be top dominant, which is to say it wants to do most of its growth in the top, and if allowed, the lower branches would start to die back. So what I'm looking to do is rebuild almost all of the structure from this tree, and to do that, what I first did was let it flush out everything it wanted to, and I decided that I wasn't going to make hardly any choices. We didn't have enough things to be making, to my mind, a lot of good choices about. So it just seemed to me the way to go was to keep all of it, allow some of it to fill in, increase the energy of the tree, figure out what we were doing that wasn't getting us there up until that point. We didn't feel like we were seeing good energy. What we were seeing was long branches. And when I first got this tree, I was seeing long branches with pom-poms coming off the ends of them, but not a lot of back budding, not a lot of branches coming in the back of any of that stuff. And I was kind of worried about that. So I had some branches that I wasn't really that crazy about, but I didn't feel like cutting those branches was going to be a good way to go. If you see what I'm doing right now, I've made a decision that we're going to cut or chop everything that's sticking up, everything that's sticking straight down, or this being the trunk, everything that's coming straight back. I'm just breaking from what I was saying earlier to say that because that's what I'm doing, and I thought I'd tell you what I'm doing. The reason I'm doing that way is I am looking at a lot of leaves. It's kind of hard for me to exactly see exactly what I've got going on here with all the new growth that we had this past spring. So by cutting, branches that are straight up, branches that are straight down, branches that are pointed inward are generally considered less attractive. So unless you just don't have enough choices, that would be something that would be you would just know automatically that to get rid of. So whenever you come across a tree and you know that you need to prune it and clean it up a little bit, but you're looking at it and you're going, oh Jesus, whenever I watch these videos, those guys seem to so know what they're doing. Well, they looked at it. They looked at it for a long time before they turned the camera on, and they have a lot of experience too. But otherwise, some of those guys do the same thing. They look at it and you go, you know what, this is just a mess. I walked up here 15 minutes ago and I'm still not sure what we're going to do. So I'm just going to start cleaning it up. And they know what cleaning it up means because they know they can cut away certain things that they can cut away, and they won't discover later that they've cut off the holy grail branch or something that's, like, oh God, if only I hadn't cut that off, I would have a tree now. The stuff that will never put you in that position is generally something pointed straight up, something pointed straight down, or something pointed straight back at you. So that's just kind of what I'm doing there to clean this up. So these are the guys for which wine corks and cork floors come from. And like I was saying earlier, their tendency is to want to be top dominant, and they will actually lose energy down low. So let's see, there's a button. So what you want to do is try to balance that energy, same kind of like what you hear me saying about in the pines. We don't want to stifle any vigor or energy, so we're not going to go too nuts with this, but here's the way to think of it. When a branch down low comes out, I would probably do better to let that one go a little longer before I cut it back, because you're watching me cut stuff back in the spring and summer fairly quickly, because it's an evergreen, and I've been getting like 3 or 4 flushes or more out of this tree. And for that reason, we got all of this last year, just this past year. We've been rebuilding this tree. So, that's kind of why it's so thick right now and kind of hard to see what I'm doing. But one thing you will always see is these guys will start off with their nodes, the distance in between rows of branches. They'll start off small, and then in between every node, they'll start to get a little longer and a little longer and a little longer. So you want to be sure and waste that back and not let them have all of that space to stretch out. That's a good idea to just cut those puppies. I see why I did that. That could backfire. So that's kind of what I'm doing right now. I'm cutting off the stuff. I'm cutting off the stuff that's going straight up, cutting off the stuff that's going straight down. And if I'm keeping it and it's new growth, I'm cutting it back to an acceptable level. Sometimes you see these extremely long, like these are really, really sort of large leaves on the end of the branch, much larger than those. That was the last node that, because it was the last of spring, summer growth, I let it go a little longer. And so their leaves got a little bigger. That all, it's a good time, it's a good thing to be cutting that, or a good time to be cutting that, because those would have had, those branches would have been larger than the ones before them. And we're just taking all of that back just a little bit. And then that other thing I said earlier, the stuff that's pointed too far up. What I learned about oaks is it's hard to overfeed them. If you feed them a lot, you are increasing the amount of things, the amount of work you get to do to them. That is not a bad thing at all. I like working on this tree. Since I was starting over with it, I kind of felt like I didn't feel like I was messing with something that was holy. I kind of more felt like I was trying to repair something and learning how to do right by it at the same time. So I watched quite a few videos about cork bark oaks, and they were some of the first ones that I began to watch and learn about. And there are quite a few of them out there, you know. So these guys, like I said earlier, some of the stuff I picked up early on, I didn't learn anything that was really discouraging. You know, like you don't have to needle pluck these guys. Also, it's cool that they're evergreens. You get to look at that foliage year round, and they will slow down. They will slow down and have a dormancy period, but they won't stop. They won't stop completely, and they won't yellow out all their leaves. So, you know, you do get some nice foliage. What I'm doing now, you can also do year round. When it comes to repotting, do that in the spring. Repot in the spring, prune anytime, feed all the time. They do like water too. So the first year I was probably didn't water this as much as I could have been, as much as it would have maybe liked. And I didn't know how I was supposed to fertilize, and I was afraid of fertilizing trees when I didn't know what I was doing. I didn't want to take something and blow it out of proportions before I even knew what proportions were. And that was kind of like, you're going to do stuff you don't even understand if you start doing that, so just don't do anything. And I kind of held that attitude until that actually cost me. And then now I would say we're doing some better. Take that off. I'm going to bring that around so you can see where I'm taking that off too, rather than do it behind y'all. Got this branch here. We're going to take that guy off. To right there. It's back buds, back buds, back buds. I did see more back buds this year than I'd seen before, and that was because I was feeding. It. I'm going to continue to feed this guy. It doesn't have a feeding plan like the pines or some of the others. We're in the process of building parts, and so the more we feed it, the more stuff that it will make. And by cutting these tips, we should get more ramification. You might be wondering why I haven't trimmed that. I've turned down 2 opportunities to trim that little branch there, and I haven't both times for some reason. I'll show you why later. There is a plan behind that. All right, so bring this on around. And I'm just right now, I've already kind of taken care of a few of those long tops that I had seen earlier. I've already kind of taken care of most of that stuff. This is that was the new growth. It was already from our last time, and like I had done this like late in the year. I was still cutting on this and just getting more every time we did it. Oh, like I said, only now has it finally slowed down. Cool, we had a lot of rain. We had more rain this year than I bet I'm not the only one in the Bay Area talking about the amount of rain they got. Whenever I got a black pine, I asked Bonsai tonight, Jonas. I said, have you ever had overwatered one just from rain? He goes, not here. Not unless it rains for 3 weeks straight like it did. And he named off a year in our recent past that it had done just that. And that's what kind of rains we had here. I at one point lost a tree over that, and I had to move my little pines, which take a little bit more water than the bigger ones. I had to move them way back to the back of the balcony to try to get them out of the water that was just blowing in. And everybody stayed soggy. Everybody stayed soggy out there for a long time. Not even going to give it a day. Everybody stayed soggy for a long time. A little bit of yellowing. Nothing else though. Nothing else to report. We pretty well got away with it. Glad we got all that water. I'm glad all the rest of California got all that water. That's you know, the redwoods and all that stuff will be really happy that you know, that probably saves some trees. Those guys move a hellacious amount of water. A coastal redwood, you know, a grown, huge coastal redwood, those things can move, can be at any one time be moving 10,000 gallons of water up, down, and sideways. I guess it's like it's pumping it up to the foliage, and then some of it is probably letting come back down, and then it does actually move laterally through some species and doesn't through others. I think nutrients and moisture move laterally through pines, for instance. So this stuff that's pointing in, we're just going to go ahead and get rid of that. And then these guys that are too long or too big on the end, give those little guys a little. Right. The last leaf you leave will be from where your next branch will come. And I don't believe you necessarily need to leave the stub on oaks the way you do on the way I was taught to on maples. Whether that's right or not, I'll just say that. I don't think it's necessary that you leave a little stub. Every time I've done that on these, I've always just seen that there again later, and you know, it was just like I left it. So they don't seem to die back a long way from what I've seen. If you, when you're doing a repot on these guys, like I said earlier, that's best done in spring. Younger cork bark oaks do it about every 2 to 3 years. Older cork bark oaks do about every 5 to 7. Don't go nuts on the roots. Don't reduce the roots a whole lot on those. I mean, you can tease them and they're going to be like a solid mass. I've heard of people just putting the chopsticks to those guys for hours to get that root ball to break up, and that's not. I'm not saying don't do that. I'm saying once you've done that, don't chop it by a whole lot. When this guy gets a repot, it will get a change of angle and will probably take a direction more that way. Yeah, that needs to, let's see, probably already, no I didn't, I'll just do that. Alright, so you've seen me do some of this standing over it and looking down. There comes a point where I think I do better if I'm underneath this tree looking up. It's easier for me to stand underneath and look up. Well, when I'm doing that, I'm not going to see the stuff that's pointed straight up, and I'm not going to see necessarily those shoots that are too long up here. So that's kind of why I got those first up here. This is not there, Pat. This is about the point where I'm going to tip the camera down a little, and then have a seat down there next to Miss Frida, and work the tree from down there. I like the perspective from down here looking up. All right, that's about where I think I'm going to call this from here. All right, see you on the other side. Okay, now, yeah, there's the signatory kick of the camera that tells you that you are in fact watching a bonsai balcony and Pat and Frida video. Yep, and there's the finger, just to know you should feel right at home now. All right, so I'm climbing around stuff, which is pretty tricky to do for me. And, oh, sorry, neighbors. Okay, so here I am, down here, loving life, looking up at this tree and thinking, oh, how cool. And it is. It's from down here, I can sort of see sort of what I was thinking a long time ago before all the confusion. And it's pretty cool. That's the red tag. Yeah. I got a lot of that stuff that I was saving, that I thought I was saving already. I already got a lot of it. Yeah. So, what I figured out about cork bark oaks is they are very forgiving, somewhat forgiving. As long as you can keep them watered and keep them fed, they're not hard to keep alive. They are tricky to ramify. What I was saying about the energy, more on the top of the tree than the bottom, is sort of spot on. They are funny that way, and you may find that you're trying to work with the balance quite a bit. What you don't want to do is stop the energy that's going. You want to slow the energy down here so that stuff that's happening down here will flush full out. Next spring, when shoots come out of here and shoots come out of there, I will probably allow those to run longer. I don't want to cut that because that's no more back budding after besides that. This is the top branch that I'm gonna keep. This is not a top branch I'm gonna keep. The difference being is this tree kind of has a problem already with the pom-poms, and we have something going on here midway, and we're happy about that. So it's not at a most desirable angle, but we're okay with it anyway. But otherwise, I've still pretty much been in keeping with my cutting everything going straight up, cutting everything going straight down, and everything going straight back. So, dare I use the P word, it almost looks like, especially when we get more foliage coming out of here, it will start to take a slightly pad-like appearance. Man, I better trim this tree before I forget what I was thinking and cut that branch just for being all sitting there all straight up like that. Cut that while I can. Okay, so yeah, that's pretty much all we had going on there. This is my cork bark oak. It is, I think, about 38 years old at this point. There is something about the way that the roots were chopped that leads me to believe that it might have been a graft taken off of a tree, or it might have been a yamadori, because there's a really large piece of barky looking root down there underneath that and it, like I said, barky like this. Now that is something cool about these guys. The amount of bark that they make, and they do that early on. That's for them is fire protection. And when you see one of these trees that's been harvested, to me they look like sheep that have been sheared. They have a very kind of, they sort of have, poor things they do, they sort of have a pitiful look about them. But that leaves them vulnerable to fire, because that is what that stuff is for, to protect them from fire. But at the same time, they grow it back fairly, or at least some of it fairly quickly. And those fields are prized too, so it's not like somebody wouldn't be all about trying to protect those fields from fire, knowing that they had already harvested their vulnerable trees out of the way. So that's just kind of how those go. And they're from the Mediterranean, and I've seen the leaves do several things. They can sometimes look small and pill-shaped, almost like an olive, or they can sometimes have those little jagged spikes on them, like a holly, and even do that on the same tree, depending on whether or not the tree feels like it's being pruned by cattle. I think, I'm not sure why. Like if you cut one back, sometimes when you cut back oaks, they change their foliage to something a little bit more, shall we say, defensive. That's new growth, and it is thicker than the branch it's hanging on. So it's not much of a decision to make on that one. Everything just flourished so well this year. So next spring, or in just a few short months, if we're lucky, a few short weeks, if we're less lucky, we should start seeing this guy flush out again. And all of these sites that we've pruned back should be prime places. And all I want to see is just all of that to flush out more, and that branch to just bleed into this, to bleed into that, to roll into this, and to roll into that, and it just fill out all over. That is kind of what we're hoping here. Why didn't I like that branch? Well, this would be like a branch coming out of the armpit. We have the tree rolling this way, and then this way, and then this way, and then back. Now, if I think about it, if you look, you know, I named this tree Log in the early going because it did. It looked very much like a log. But when we get enough foliage on this thing, it won't be Log anymore. It's gonna really be something, guys. And I'm pretty excited. I'm pretty excited at the thought of that. Well, I guess I do. Yeah, I guess so. I was making a decision as to whether or not to keep some branches. We're still in a position to where some of this stuff, I think I'm keeping for lack of other choices, but it is filling out nicely. The difference was in picking up on the feeding and the watering. Absolutely. And repotting. I did do that. I repotted it last year. So almost wished I hadn't. I mean, it needed it, but I probably could have waited till now. And had I waited till now, I would have done that angle. I would like to have the tree, let's see, yeah, go this way, go that way. I'll shorten this side, raise that side, plant it more at an angle. I think that'll be the bee's knees, as they say. Let's take that down right there. 2, right there. Okay. All right. I am maybe. It's just now starting to, you know, like I'm still not quite seeing. Oh, there we go. It's stuff like that. You know, it was sticking straight up, and as soon as I removed that piece straight up, I could see the light that I had created, the area of light that I had created, and I could also see what it was I was trying to do a lot better. So sometimes, like I said, it's just a matter of fall back on your rules. Anything sticking straight up, anything sticking straight down, anything sticking straight back. Now, you know, last spring when we had no branches, I was pointing out that sometimes in the wild you see oaks with branches straight up and straight down. And I've heard other people who are better or who are good designers. I'm not gonna say better than me. I don't know how good I am at this yet. That's a lot to be seen. I think I'm pretty okay at it so far. That's just this is kind of what I was talking about. Maybe it looks funny from there, I don't know, but I can see a nice little lacy pattern when I look underneath this tree like this. And also, it also reminds me of why I love bonsai. This is just such a splendid little view of this tree. Take part of that, leave part of that. The decision process. Yeah. Okay. All right. That is probably a pretty good time to wrap this up. We clean this guy up. We clean this guy up somewhat. I think that we got quite a bit done. We can see the tree that we're making. Also, I can see the places where I've left those stubs, you know, that I'm constantly going back and having to clean those up, and they didn't really suffer any kind of dieback. So that's kind of why I'm saying I'm not going to continue to leave that space the way I used to the way I do for other trees, for oaks. And here's a rotate for y'all up there while I am kind of looking for anything that's just glaring out at me. Here I've got some stuff kind of, yeah, here. So what I've learned this year to take over from next year is next year when we're getting our foliage frenzy, as I guess I'll call it, I am not going to be as eager to cut back the lower branches. I'm going to allow them to have their vigor a little longer to try to give them a little head start. That's what that's about. The top foliage, we don't want to rob the energy, but we kind of want to do that just like we did last year. We're going to keep chopping that back, except I'm going to chop that back a little less on the bottom, so that whenever this thing has a full canopy, hopefully you won't see a notable difference in the amount of foliage that we have down here. We'll have a strong amount of ramification and good foliage from here up to the topper parts of the tree. Otherwise, that'll be our next lesson, and we'll have to prune and atone for those sins after we, that'll be what's next. We have to atone. I think I've figured that out though early enough to head that part of it off. I did. I have 3 little branches coming out here in one spot, but that is a fairly bare spot. I don't know if those are too close together. I'm going to decide on that later. So yeah, we're going to call, last call, y'all. We are going to call that for tonight. That is my cork bark oak end of year cleanup, and this has been a very, very rewarding tree. It is an easy tree to keep alive. It is a little harder to ramify. It is very rewarding to grow, and really worth the trouble though. These guys make beautiful bonsais, and you can get some outstanding bark. Not too long in the game. I did hear somebody say recently they were saying how much they love cork bark oaks, and they were also stating, I think, that they didn't know where they could find. I believe, I don't know where you're located, but Eric at Bonsai, I believe in San Francisco, has starters that's not going to be barked over little trees, but they don't take that long. These guys are kind of known for that. That would be one place, I believe, where a person could get themselves a cork bark oak, and then you two could be having all this cork bark oak joy. They do make a lot of branches, and like I said, you can prune them year round. You can, yeah, they're just a lot of fun to grow, and they're pretty tough. So yeah, all right. That, no sooner do I say that's about enough than I see something else. Go there and do that. Okay, I'll probably cut that branch 3 times, but every time I thought it was the last time, just like I'm gonna do here. Okay. Yeah, do that again, Pat. Do that again. Do that instead. All right, like and subscribe if you guys have not already. Our next drop will be this weekend. Maybe I'll bring my coastal oak out and do the same thing to it. It'll be sort of the same, but a more finished, closer to finished tree. It's a real pretty little, also 30-something-year-old, almost 40-year-old California native oak, and I really love the trunk and the bark work on it, and it needs the same thing done to it, just a little bit of prune back work. So yeah, I'll just get up here and pop off camera. Thank you so much for watching.